Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. If you're new here, my name is Jody and this channel is dedicated to the affordable end of the watch market. If that's your favorite end of the watch market, you should probably subscribe to the channel by hitting the big button that says subscribe on it. Today it's my top 10 picks for affordable watches that don't look affordable. Nothing on today's list costs more than $500 US, but all of the watches look like they cost many times that. Now, no homages today, no lookalikes, that's a different video. These are all original designs from some of the biggest names, the very best budget brands. I'll leave links to all 10 watches in the order that I show them in the description of the video if you're keen to pick one of these up for yourself. Use those links as a starting point, but make sure you dig around, get the best deal for you, for your local region and your local currency. Alright, let's get into it. And let's start, as we mean to go on, at number 1 with the Tissot PRX, the watch on my wrist today. You've probably heard of the PRX. It's one of the most popular affordable watches of the last 5 years and it has been a huge hit for Tissot. It's not the only Tissot on today's list, by the way. It's such an incredible brand, arguably the most prestigious you can buy for under $500. Now the automatic PRX is very nice and you can get one for under $500 if you opt for leather, or just over $500 if you want the full bracelet, but I'm going to suggest that you have a look at the quartz. It's the same watch but for half of the money. This is my PRX. I went for the 40mm with brushed silver dial and rose gold hands because I think it looks smoking hot and far more expensive than the sub $300 price tag suggests. Look at that wrist roll, look at how all of those links catch and play with the light. Very, very nice indeed. And indeed you can pick one up on JOMASHOP just like mine for $285 US. If you don't like that colour, don't worry, Tissot have launched what feels like millions of these. There's green, there's blue, there's black, there's pretty much anything you can think of, all around the $300 mark. Next up, it's the first of 3 watches from another affordable powerhouse, Seiko. And I'm going to direct you specifically to look at their Seiko 5 SNK and SNX range of watches. There are hundreds and hundreds of different Seiko 5s to choose from, starting at around $100 US. The SNKL 23 is the one Hodinkee famously labelled the $75 watch that looks like $1 million. Perhaps a bit of an exaggeration, but you get the idea. I've had 2 of these myself and they do indeed look very nice. The standard of finishing on the case, the dial and the hands, all well beyond what the modest price tag would suggest. And I recently looked at the SNX S73 and I was really impressed with its sophisticated good looks, again around $100 US. Do bear in mind these are not particularly big watches and the bracelets on them are not fantastic if you're hairy. But this isn't top 10 watches for big hairy men video, so we'll take that on board and move on. Okay, number 3, an absolute affordable classic that seems to get better and better with every passing generation. It is, of course, the Orient Bambino. Orient are owned by the same parent company as Seiko and sell watches in Japan and overseas. The Bambino has been the go-to groomsman's watch for a decade now, precisely because it looks really expensive, but it only costs $140. There have been many different versions. My favourite are the version 2s. The movements in them are a little bit noisy and the leather band's a bit stiff, but all is forgiven when you see how attractive these watches are. The versions with a small second hand are a little more expensive, and the newer 38mm versions a little more expensive again, but you won't be paying more than $300 US for even the newest, hottest version of the Bambino. And to the untrained eye, it's a watch that looks like it costs several $1,000s, not several $100s. Moving on, at number 4 we have a watch that not only looks far more expensive than it actually is, but it's been to the moon. Sort of. It is of course the Bulova Lunar Pilot, an affordable icon with the best backstory of any watch on the list today. It's a reissue of a 1970s chrono by the brand that went to the moon as part of one of the Apollo missions on the wrist of astronaut Dave Scott. Dave's original watch sold at auction for over $1.5 million a couple of years ago, but you can buy one just like it for $349. this watch is too cheap. And it looks fantastic with crisp white hands against a rich black dial. The bead blasted case does its best to hide scratches, and it's a chronograph. Chronographs look expensive because generally they are expensive. This one isn't expensive because it's quartz, but not just ordinary quartz. This is high frequency, high accuracy quartz capable of timing up to 1 hour, but down to 1/1000th of a second. One word of warning though, it wears big and it wears flat. I've got an average size wrist and I feel it's just a bit too big for me. But if you have the wrist for it, it looks great, it's full of tech and it's been to the moon, and they still only want $350 for it. Like I said, too cheap. And number 5 on today's list is the cheapest watch on today's list, coming in at less than $50. It's not a watch on the surface that looks particularly expensive, but bear with me for a minute. It's the Casio G-Shock DW5600E, and it's the cheapest G-Shock you can buy. These are $47 and change on eBay, link in the description of course. Buying one of these is kind of like buying a BMW 116 or a Mercedes A180, if you see what I mean. You're buying the cheapest watch on a very long price ladder. The top end G-Shocks cost many thousands of dollars, and you get that trickle down branding effect with this base model. And G-Shock is such a strong brand, as strong as anything here today. They can regularly be found on the wrists of the rich and famous. People who know watches and love watches like Eminem, Ed Sheeran and John Mayer love G-Shocks and are regularly seen wearing their Casios alongside their far more expensive luxury watches. So do you see what I mean? Under $50 for a brand that can hold its head high even in much more expensive company. And the watch itself, by the way, is fantastic. A dead set legend, tough as old boots, and full of every function that you'll ever need on a watch. Alright, moving on to watch number 6, and you'll begin to see the same brands from the first half of the video appearing in the second half of the video. Number 6 is the second Seiko. I did say they were all original watches today. This Seiko is not trying to pretend it's anything other than a Seiko, but it won't be upset if you mistake it for a Cartier, let's put it that way. It's the SRW052, classic tank slim case watch, gold tone, Roman numerals, black leather strap, cabochon crown. Very Cartier, but with a very un-Cartier price of $114. There's also a gold tone with brown strap and no Romans. And if gold tone is a little too mature for you, the exact same watch is available with a silver case as the SRW049 for a similar price tag. It's such a timeless, classic, luxurious look, and it doesn't get much more affordable than this. Plus you get a brand like Seiko on the dial, and because it only has 2 hands, nobody will ever know that it contains an affordable quartz movement. Tip from the top right there. So from a watch that takes its inspiration from Cartier to a watch that takes its inspiration from Rolex, or at least Rolex's colour palette, it's the Citizen Crystal 7. This watch is a remake of a Citizen from the 1970s, so it is an original design, but they have brought it bang up to date with some superb colours, such as this striking orange yellow. There's also a green, there's a white, and there's this phenomenal rich dark red as well. This watch looks far more expensive than the very modest $155 equivalent that I paid for this one. If you want a Rolex Oyster Perpetual in this size with that colour on the dial, you're looking at $7,000 retail. $10,000 grey market. This Citizen brings the fun and the colour of the top end of the market to the affordable end of the market. And look how nice the finishing on the dial and the hands is. It just doesn't look like an affordable watch. It looks fantastic. You only get mineral crystal rather than sapphire, unfortunately, and the bracelet is not going to win any awards, but overall it looks so much more expensive than it is. Okay, on to Tissot number 2, and it's a model that has become a retro modern classic. It's the Visodate. The Visodate puts striking mid-century looks on your wrist in a Swiss-made watch from a brand that has been making watches for over 150 years, plus you get an 80-hour power reserve movement, all for less than $500. And this one has classic proportions, 40-20, so it's nice and easy to swap the strap for any 20 mils that you already have in the house if you want to. It only has 30 meters of water resistance, so don't be jumping in your pool with this one on your wrist, but that's not what this watch is for anyway. It has Tissot's heritage branding on the dial with their old style logo and a rare day-date version of the Powermatic 80 movement. The mesh band looks great and it has a gorgeous custom rotor on that Powermatic 80. JOMASHOP has these in stock at the moment in a couple of different colour versions, just scraping in under today's self-imposed $500 budget. Like I said, retro modern classic, it looks rich and it's much safer than the minefield of buying a vintage watch. Watch 9 is the second Orient on today's list after the Bambino. This one is the Orient Star. You have a look at this one. Have a look at those beautiful arrowhead indices, blue Dauphine hands, additional complication of the power reserve indicator at the 12, the delicately applied Orient Star logo, beautiful domed crystal, and an in-house movement with a custom skeletonized rotor and perlage on the main plates. And look at the bracelet, it's a proper 5-link bracelet and it is very well finished. What do you reckon? 1500? Maybe $2,000? Nope, these are $340 If you can find one, they're not all that easy to find. JOMASHOP seem to have the black dial version currently available for $380, which looks quite frankly as good as the white one. This watch was a real surprise when I reviewed it last year. The Orient Star range is a little bit exclusive. It's their premium in-house stuff with premium looks and premium finishing, but without the premium price tag. If you can find one, get one. And finally, watch number 10 is the third Seiko on the list, emphasizing their dominance at the affordable end of the market and their prowess at making watches look much more expensive than they are. It's a bit of a viewer's choice here. Pick a cocktail time, any cocktail time. I've reviewed 7 or 8 of these now. None of them have been more than $500. All of them have looked like they cost well north of $1,000. The movements in these are solid if unspectacular, but who cares when the dials are so spectacular? My personal favourites have been my Irish Coffee and my Hojicha limited edition, both in various shades of gorgeous brown. I think they look rich, I think they look luxurious, I think there's a level of detail in here well beyond what you'd expect from an affordable watch. If you're not a fan of brown, what about salmon pink? This is the so-called Tequila Sunset and it just looked amazing with that 3D pattern on the dial. Again, well under 500. And remember, you don't have to frequent the nightclubs of the Ginza district to wear a cocktail time. They'll look just as spectacular down your local pub instead. So there you have it. Hopefully a bit of food for thought today. 10 watches, all of which make you look like you spent a lot of money when you've actually only spent a little money. Which one was your favourite, or did I miss your favourite expensive looking affordable watch? Leave me a comment, I'm sure there's enough out there for a second top 10 at some point. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. Why not check out full reviews of a Cocktail Time or a Tissot PRX here. I hope to see you all again in a future video.